The Imperial recruitment. The call for monsters. The CH-Tal didn't negotiate. They consumed. For 3 solar cycles, the Galactic Empire's finest had been outmaneuvered, overrun, and eviscerated on every front by the insectoid swarm. Genetically engineered warbots melted under acid saliva. Elite soldiers screamed as their minds were ripped apart by hive psychics. The CH-Tal couldn't be bribed, reasoned with, or contained. In desperation, the Imperial High Command turned to the one resource they had deemed too wild, too chaotic, too human: Earth. For 200 years, Earth had been quarantined, labeled a Class Red Savage Zone. It was a planet considered too emotionally volatile, too genetically unstable to integrate into the ordered hierarchy of the Empire. But now the Empire was bleeding. Now they needed monsters. And history remembered one thing about Earth. Its women survived hell and made it scream. The shuttle landed in what had once been Detroit, now a collapsed jungle of steel and moss. A column of smoke rose from a nearby city block. Armed women gathered in packs near the ruins, watching the silver vessel with a mix of suspicion and deadened apathy. Out stepped Commander Cale Voss, eyes sweeping over them through a polished visor. He was tall, skeletal in frame, armored in Imperial chrome. Flanking him were humanoid recruiters, flanked by spider-legged security droids. But the real weapons were the holograms behind them. Footage of the CH-Tal war front. Children dissolved in acid, cities swallowed in chitin, and noble worlds reduced to hives. Cale spoke without emotion. The Empire seeks warriors, not diplomats, not citizens, beasts, weapons with rage in their blood. He paused, letting the silence churn. We offer food, purpose, augmentation, freedom. No one moved. Not yet. Not until she did. From the crowd stepped a woman in scavenged armor, one eye white and glazed, the other focused like a predator. Scars spidered down her neck. She walked with the certainty of someone who had nothing left to lose. Sergeant Naira Vale. I don't serve empires, she said, voice low but unwavering. Cale inclined his head slightly. You don't. You lead monsters, don't you? Naira glanced back at the crowd. Hardened women, former soldiers, gang leaders, bruised mothers with sharpened steel in their eyes. Survivors, all of them. The kind the Empire couldn't manufacture. The kind no system could contain. You're going to try and chain us, she said. We'll chain nothing, Cale replied. We'll unleash you, and pray the enemy dies faster than we do. Naira stood in the boarding chamber hours later, armored and grim. Around her were 100 others, ex-convicts, guerrilla medics, firebombed grandmothers who once led resistance cells. The Empire called it Project Harpy. You really think they'll let us live when it's over? Asked Cora, a knife-thin sniper with frost tattoos across her cheeks. No, Naira answered, but they'll regret waking us up at all. As the shuttle left Earth's atmosphere, its engines thrumming like a war drum, Naira looked down one last time at the shattered blue world. She didn't feel sorrow. She felt ignition. They didn't want heroes. They wanted beasts. And now they would have to survive them. Training the beasts. Unleashed. The training moon was called Vorak 9, but the women quickly renamed it the Maw. It wasn't a facility. It was a crucible. Poisonous air that burned the lungs unless you adapted. Nights so cold your skin cracked if you didn't move. And predators. Genetically altered nightmares let loose just to see who would panic. The first week, 30 died. The Empire didn't mourn. Their monitors recorded everything. Every broken rib, every snapped spine, every scream. Behind tinted glass, officers in sterile coats took notes like they were testing rats. The women weren't recruits. They were data points. Naira Vale watched her squad come apart, then pull itself back together. Not because they were ordered, but because they chose to. Push again, barked the voice from the speakers. Faster. Naira stood in a flooded trench, her body trembling from the parasite stings pulsing under her skin. A simulation drone loomed overhead, firing plasma blasts inches from her head. Every second she hesitated, another woman died in the projection beside her. They called this test the trial of split pain. forcing recruits to endure pain stimuli while making tactical decisions for others. Most screamed, others froze. Naira grit her teeth and screamed orders. Talia, flank left. Cora, take that high ridge and burn the nest. No one dies here unless I say. One of the drones hesitated. It had logged her heart rate. Her brain waves should have been shutting down. Instead, they were syncing with every woman on her channel. She's linking them, said a technician behind the glass. Emotionally, another officer shook his head. No, she's leading them. In the mess hall, silence hung like steel cables. No one talked much. Food was fuel. Sleep was a luxury. Betrayal was an expectation. But Naira's group was changing that. Each night, they sat together, shared rations, compared wounds like badges. They called themselves the Daughters of Slag, burned by life, shaped in fire. One woman, Arla, who hadn't spoken since arriving, finally looked up from her tray. You know what they're trying to make us, right? She whispered. Naira met her eyes. Weapons. No. Beasts, Arla said, trembling. Things that don't question, that don't cry when it ends. Cora leaned in, her voice like a razor. Then maybe they should have picked someone else. Naira nodded. Because beasts don't plan rebellions. Their final test was called the Core Drill, a simulation of deep hive combat under gravity compression. For 15 hours, the women had to fight wave after wave of CH-Tal models with no exits and limited ammo. It wasn't a test of skill. It was a test of surrender. And they didn't. When the dust settled, 25 of them were still standing, bloodied, screaming, laughing. One of the drones approached Naira, weapons charged for cleanup. She didn't flinch. Instead, she ripped the barrel off with her bare hands and jammed it into the drone's eye. The feed cut out. In the command room, alarms blared. Techs scrambled to shut down the exercise. Commander Kale Voss stood with arms crossed. She's exceeding every threshold, one officer said. We should dose her again, level 6 suppressant this time. Kale shook his head. No, let them think they're free. Let them feel their fire. But she's not controllable. Exactly, Kale said. Because when the hive sees what we've made, asterisk, they'll know fear again. Back in the barracks, Naira stared at the ceiling, her muscles twitching from aftershock. Arla leaned over. You think they'll really send us out next? Naira smiled. Not soft, not kind. They made a mistake, she said. They trained monsters. But they forgot. We already were. The frontline betrayal. The Empire's mistake. Craxa Prime was a death world. The sky bled violet lightning. Towers of bone and resin rose from the ground like spears. Beneath them, the CH-Tal hive churned, miles of tunnels, nests, and birthing pits. The Daughters of Slag were dropped into the heart of it. No extraction, no reinforcements. Mission parameters. Neutralize the hive queen. Burn the central breeding caverns. Survive if you can. The first wave hit them before they even touched ground. CH-Tal flyers screamed through the storm, hurling acid and talons. But the women didn't flinch. They charged. Naira led from the front, covered in exo-armor that was already scarred and sparking. Cora sniped from perches of crumbling chitin. Arla carried a flamer rig and laughed like a maniac as she cooked whole clusters alive. For hours, they carved a path of blood and fire through the tunnels. The hive shrieked in confusion. This wasn't how humans were supposed to fight. They were supposed to break. Instead, they became monsters. By the third day, they reached the hive core. Naira stood atop a corpse pile, chest heaving, blade glowing with hive blood. We're close, she muttered. One final push. Then came the static in her comm. A cold voice. Empire Protocol. Code Echo Null. Remote Protocol armed. Harpy Units 07 through 13. Preparation for sterilization complete. Godspeed, sisters. Naira froze. Her stomach dropped. Sterilization. Elsewhere in the tunnels, women were exploding. Implanted kill switches, hidden under augment ports, were being triggered. Their bodies lit up from within, screams echoing through the hive as they burned alive from the inside out. Arla's voice crackled in panic. It's us. They're culling us. They're at silence. Naira's rage went cold. They weren't supposed to come home. They were supposed to die after winning. A final act of containment. Pull back, she ordered. Find cover. Rip those implants out. Cora's voice snarled back. Screw pulling back. Let's give them a reason to regret ever wiring us. Using scavenged gear and medbots, Naira and the surviving women began forcibly removing their kill switches. Some died in the process. Others survived, bleeding and screaming. And then they turned. Not toward the hive, toward the sky, toward the Empire. At orbit, in the Empire Dreadnought Vigilance Eternal, Commander Kale Voss stared at the incoming data, dead vitals, corrupted feeds, combat telemetry failing one by one. A junior officer panicked. Sir, they've gone dark. Should we send reinforcements? Kale said nothing for a moment. Then, no. Seal the surface. Fire if necessary. But sir, we train them. We train monsters, he said coldly. Now we erase them. But it was too late. The Daughters of Slag hijacked a downed gunship, patched together its hull with hive resin and Imperial armor, and roared off the surface like a phoenix from hell. Inside, bloodied, broken, but burning with fury, Naira climbed into the pilot's seat. Set course, she growled, for their command fleet. In the dark void of space, a monster was coming. And this time, it wasn't loyal. Monsters no more. The fire they couldn't contain. The Imperial Dreadnought Vigilance Eternal had never been boarded. It was said to be impenetrable, encased in titanium ceramic plating, protected by auto turrets, AI, kill protocols, and legions of cybermarines. And yet the alarm screamed. Hull integrity breached. Power failures rippled down the command spine. Screams echoed through steel corridors as Project Harpy, those wild, discarded beasts, ripped their way into the heart of the Empire's war machine. Naira Vale led the charge. Her armor, salvaged and scarred, now bore only one mark, a black handprint on her chest plate, the symbol of rebellion, of betrayal repaid. They didn't spare anyone in uniform. The first officer who begged for mercy died with Naira's boot through his faceplate. The second tried to activate the fail-safes. Cora put a round through his spine before he reached the console. They moved like ghosts, coordinated, relentless. Every woman had lost someone to the Empire's betrayal. Now, the Empire would lose everything. They reached the bridge in under 20 minutes. Kale Voss stood waiting, flanked by security droids and plasma-tipped guards. He didn't flinch. I trained you, he said simply. I forged you into what you are. Naira didn't slow. No, you unleashed what was already there, she said. And now you're going to drown in it. Kale raised a hand to give the kill command. Naira tossed something at his feet, a scorched implant module. A kill switch, still blinking. Didn't work, she spat. Now we're free. Kale opened his mouth, but the daughters opened fire first. The bridge filled with fire and blood. Later, with the dreadnought under their control, Naira stood on the command deck. Stars stretched out before her. Silence pulsed in her ears. Cora stepped beside her, helmet under one arm. Now what? She asked. We killed their enforcer. They're clean ship. They'll come for us. They won't find us, Naira said. We'll be ghosts. Shadows. We'll hit their war factories, their training worlds, their command nodes. You want revenge? Naira shook her head. I want truth. I want the galaxy to see what the Empire did, what it needed us to be, and what it tried to throw away when we became too real. Cora smiled. So we're not beasts anymore. Naira looked down at her hands, still bloodied, still shaking, still human. No, she whispered. We're something worse. We're awake. 6 months later, the Empire burned. Across the outer sectors, reports of strike teams, female, feral, unstoppable, crippling key targets began spreading. Recruitment centers bombed. Command generals assassinated. Imperial AI corrupted. They called them many names. The Harpy Wraiths, the Burn Daughters, the Black Hands. But across the stars, in whispered tones, they were called one thing above all. Human. And the Empire finally learned. You don't make monsters out of Earth's women, unless you're ready to beg them for mercy.